Welcome. I am Jeff Keith with Success Music Studio. I'm glad you were able to join us today. While I teach any student, I specialize in young students, students with learning disabilities, and select special needs students. Today, we will be talking about learning disabilities and special needs issues, how they impact the lessons. First, we will discuss learning disabilities, or LD as it is called. LD is usually not an issue of general intelligence, but rather of perception. Ron Davis, the author of The Gifted Learning, Thomas G. West, author of In the Mind's Eye, Linda K. Silverman, who works with gifted students, all say that many students with LD are picture thinkers, or as Silverman says, visual spatial learners. This means that picture thinkers have high spatial reasoning, meaning that they can imagine an object like a toy car or a block and are able to move it in 3 dimensions in their imagination. In addition, Davis says that many students with LD can see their imagination as if it is real. So, we have an apple. If you look at the apple, what color is it? Most people respond red, but if you look closely, you can see that it's not just red. It is also yellow, with a little bit of green and a little bit of brown. And people with ADD and ADHD are like that. What they do is they see the apple and they don't easily categorize it just into one label, red, but notice all the different colors. So on one hand, they have a tendency to be able to see things that other people wouldn't. So people with ADD, on the one hand, are not able to easily categorize the apple into the label red, but they are able to see all the things that other people can. And that's where the gifted element can come out, because they can discover things that other people would not notice. So now we have the optical illusion that you see with this cube. So which side of the cube is the ladybug on? If you look at it closely, sometimes it looks like it's on the front of the cube, and sometimes it is on the back of the cube. This is what is called an unstable object. There is not enough information provided by the cube to let it resolve into a shape that does not flip back and forth. And that is the type of thing that you get with people who are visual spatial. They think spatially, they have high spatial reasoning, and so they can imagine things flipping around very easily. Thomas G. West talks about a situation where if a picture thinker was out in the woods and saw a tree from an angle he'd never seen it before, this could be an asset because it could keep him from getting lost. But if I take an abstract symbol like a B, a P, a D, or a Q, you don't know what the symbol is unless I tell you what it is. Our next example has a simple word map. Now, we saw with the ladybug that the cube could flip backwards and forwards. And we also saw with the B, D, P, and Q that this can influence letters that have a similar shape, and the orientation of the shape of the letter determines what the sound is. So if we take this simple word map and we were to flip around all the letters, you can see that it does spell some words like damn and Pam, but mostly it creates a confusing hash. And this is what happens with people with high spatial reasoning. Not all people, but many people will flip it around, and that's why they get dyslexic tendencies. Just as letters can flip around, similar issues can happen in response to sheet music as well. You'll notice in our next optical illusion that there is a pulsation caused by the wavy lines. This is similar to the shimmer that students with learning disabilities will oftentimes describe when they read text. Now you'll notice that when I put the color overlay over the optical illusion that it drastically reduces the shimmer. So we just saw the shimmer. Now if we fade in some graphics, a lot of people with learning disabilities will see a shimmer from that. Now you can see the same text fade in on the right, and that I have drawn in a lot of lines. You see, what happens is a lot of people with high spatial reasoning, they will key in on the negative space and it will start to crisscross back and forth and create a shimmer. And this can create problems with understanding text. So as I said before, the color overlay does not increase reading speed, it does not increase reading comprehension, but it is my theory that by decreasing the contrast, it creates a situation where it is much less fatiguing for the person with learning disabilities, which makes it much more easy for the person with learning disabilities to be able to read. So, what do we do to address the issues for the student? Ron Davis, in his book The Gift of Learning, talks about disorientation. Remember that the person who is a visual spatial learner can see his imagination as if it's real. And the imagination can be so powerful that it can actually overwrite what he's seeing in his mind. When what is in his mind is different than what is in the actual environment, this is what Davis calls disorientation. He describes a situation where if you're sitting in a car and you're still and another car moves, it can give you the illusion that you're moving. That is an example of disorientation. And people who are visual spatial learners are very prone to having issues with disorientation. So, the first step is to do what Davis calls the alignment procedure and can be found in his book, The Gift of Learning. That is probably the most important step. The problem is once the student is aligned, they can still disorient if they get a symbol that is confusing. So the next step is to use multisensory tools to be able to teach students. So our graphic that you're looking at now are what I call note blocks. They are three-dimensional blocks shaped like quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes that the student can handle and will help resolve the unstable object and make it so that the notes will not flip around and be confusing. By adding the sense of touch, it helps to make the abstract symbol more three-dimensional and real-world. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a learning disability, but not an academic one. Rather, it is a social learning disability. The range can go anywhere from a difficulty picking up social cues from the face and voice to extreme difficulties in communication. But I will talk about classic autism in the next section. The main issues for students who are high on the spectrum are distractibility, persistence, and keeping on task, for which we have tangent bombs to help students keep on task. As far as using multisensory tricks and teaching tools, there is a great amount of variability with people on the spectrum. Some students will pick up reading and playing music very easily, while others will need applied multisensory teaching techniques to learn music effectively. When I say special needs, in addition to classic autism and Down syndrome, I mean anyone who is not a typical learner and does not fit cleanly in the above categories, such as a student of mine who has amnesia. In addition to using appropriate multisensory strategies, I find that special needs students will generally need more hand-over-hand work, less verbal instruction, modified scores and arrangements, as well as micro breaks. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found the video helpful. I encourage you to explore the rest of successmusicstudio.com for further and more detailed information on learning disabilities and special needs. If you are looking for guitar or piano lessons for yourself or your child, please call or email me. Again, thank you.